Welcome to SETC Training's video on managing requirements and designing processes. Contact us today at setctraining.com for all of your training requirements. As soon as you register 2 people in any one of our courses, you automatically get guaranteed delivery dates with a live and in-class instructor, and we give you a 10% discount on the per person rate. If ever you have 5 people or more, ask about our group discounts. So let's get started and take a look at the difference between functional and non-functional requirements. Functional requirements describe what a solution has to be able to accomplish from a business perspective. And it's really important that this be taken from a business perspective, because if your business use cases, that is your functional requirements, are overly technical, then this can lead to stakeholder confusion and can lead to incomplete or inaccurate functional requirements. Functional requirements are typically documented as either short-form use cases in the form of HR clerk starts a file, or they can also be documented as formal requirement statements, statements such as the system will open a file. Conversely, non-functional requirements describe the qualities of a product or process, that is, the quality of service attributes. So these may include such things as capacity, availability, security, reliability, things like the process must be able to run 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. They are typically documented as formal requirement statements, and what's important to note is that non-functional requirements have very little to do with the process design activity. So let's take a look at a few examples. In this context, we'll look at the example where we are designing an employee intake process. In this context, functional requirements might be as such. HR clerk gathers employee payroll info. HR clerk gathers employee personal information. HR clerk requests security check, and so on. The thing to note is that we are using short form use cases to document our functional requirements, and that these describe exactly what a product can do. Note, though, that these don't describe how something is done, just what the product or solution or process needs to be able to do. Conversely, non-functional requirements may read something like personal information must be encrypted, employee intake process must be completed with 1 week after it is started, and so on. So note that these describe qualities of the desired process or solution or product. So these are examples of functional and non-functional requirements. So where are we? So far, we've described what a product or solution has to be able to do. Now we need to know how these things are completed. And this is the purpose of our fully dressed use cases. So once we have a fully dressed requirement specification and sign off has been achieved on these things, we need to then look into how this process will be executed. This is usually achieved by writing user stories if you're using Agile, or fully dressed business use cases if you're using Agile or iterative methods. As we are describing an employee intake process, that's what we're going to do. We're going to describe how that employee intake process actually happens. And we need to know that before we can actually design the process. So let's take a look at that employee intake process. The major activities in that employee intake process might be as such. Employee completes new employee information form. HR clerk validates the new employee information form. HR clerk creates new employee file. Note how, without going through every single element, we're describing the logical activities as they happen in the real world. And that's the purpose of the fully dressed business use case. That is to describe how the process is executed out there in the real world. So let's keep on going as we complete the logical activities in this process. HR clerk requests allocation of IT assets. HR clerk prepares new employee information kit, and so on. As you can imagine, as we complete this process, we start to imagine interactions with other processes. And that's the nature of business process design, is as we evolve the process, we start to design other supporting processes that allow given processes to complete. So where do we stop? Well, as we design a process, we want to make sure that we describe the activities in such a way and at such a level of detail so as to make sure that our process is not so general as to be useless, so that it doesn't provide guidance, and not so specific as to become procedural or the description of a work instruction, that is a monkey see, monkey do task, right? Because if they are too specific, then they are not generalizable, and we will not be able to achieve process repeatability across teams, divisions, or individuals. So this is a really important thing to remember. As we're designing processes, we have to strive to achieve that perfect middle when it comes to the amount of detail in the process. That is, it has to be specific enough so as to not be so general that it provides no guidance. And we have to make sure that we don't make the activities so specific as to be unable to generalize these activities across teams, departments, or divisions. This is the key element of designing processes. So let's take a look at our process in BPMN, Business Process Modeling Notation. As you can see, all of the analysis and design work that we have taken on has led us to a really well-designed, streamlined sequence of activities which make up our process. All of the activities that we previously identified, such as collecting information, creating a new employee information form, creating an employee kit, requesting a security clearance, are all reflected, as is the sequence of those activities. Further, you note that we diagram also interactions with other processes. For example, when the HR clerk requests a new security clearance, we describe an interaction with another process called security clearance process. This is because processes have a single objective, and processing a security clearance is not part of our current objectives and is the responsibility of another process. We can also describe gates, which give optional results, such as if the employee fails the security clearance check, then the process is terminated. If the security clearance check is successful, then we continue on with the remaining activities. This has been SETC Training's video on managing requirements and designing processes. Remember to contact us for any of your corporate training needs at www.setctraining.com. Thank you and have a great day.